You two characters are going to Top Gun. For 5 weeks, you're gonna fly against the best fighter pilots in the world. You were number 2, Cougar was number 1. Cougar lost it, turned in his wings. You guys are number 1. But you remember one thing. You screw up just this much, you'll be flying a cargo plane full of rubber dog shit out of Hong Kong. Yes, sir.
Yes. Let's get it, boys. The return of Mackey and Judd's action movie rewind. Right. Every time we say action movie rewind, Declan has to hit the explosion sounder. Action movie rewind. I think we're on, what, a 9-month hiatus? We stopped doing movie reviews after 2 years, like a year and a half back in maybe September or August of 2021. I want to say.
Yeah, probably started
football
Vikings
season.
Yeah, right around football season, we put it on pause.
I mean,
Yeah. So here
it
we are.
happens.
Every single
back.
Friday or thereabouts. So we're going to, and I know we've done a bunch of action movie rewinds, which you can find on previous Friday episodes of Mackey and Judd going back to the spring of 2020. But we're starting with a clean slate and a slightly different format here. So we used to do different categories, favorite, part of the movie, least favorite part. We're going to turn these action movie rewinds into statements. So every Monday we do statements from the weekend. These are going to be statements about the action movies. Could be good, bad, whatever you guys want to turn it into. But we're starting off with Action Movie Rewind version 2.0 with Top Gun as the sequel 36 years later comes out this weekend. And we'll be doing that one sometime soon here too. Top Gun from 1986. Here's the summary. Top Gun Naval Fighter Weapons School is where the best of the best train to refine their elite flying skills. When hotshot fighter pilot Maverick is sent to the school, his reckless attitude and cocky demeanor puts him at odds with the other pilots, especially the cool and collected Iceman. But Maverick isn't only competing to be the top fighter pilot. He's also competing for the attention of his beautiful flight instructor, Charlotte Blackwood. Rotten Tomatoes, 55%. The Rotten Tomatoes critics consensus says, though it features some of the most memorable and electrifying aerial footage shot with an expert eye for action, Top Gun offers too little for non-adolescent viewers to chew on when its characters aren't in the air. So, very lukewarm review at best there. $15 million budget turned into $357 million at the box office, starring Tom Cruise, Val Kilmer, Anthony Edwards, Kelly McGillis, Meg Ryan. And here's one fun fact for you guys. Due to their use by characters in the film, bomber jacket sales increased and Ray-Ban aviator sunglasses jumped 40%.
Wow.
Let's start with Judd. What is statement number 1 for you here? Top Gun.
So I was incredibly thorough with this assignment. I not only went back and watched the film yesterday,
Okay, Maverick.
but 2 days ago,
Okay, Panic.
Panic here, or as I like to be called now, Surly. I went back and listened to our initial review to see our thoughts at that time. Because if you guys recall, Phil and Declan had never seen the film at that time. And we had a very interesting discussion that I think is now going to be changed. And my first statement is this. And this was something that Phil brought up in the initial dissection of Top Gun.
I don't remember anything I said other than like, wow,
This
I
is
can't
the
believe
most
I hadn't seen
interesting
this movie.
thing. Watching this film through the prism of knowing that it was actually a propaganda film for the United States military and Navy made it far more interesting. Because the prism that I watched this through now was like, I didn't know that. And when we did it, the initial AMR off of it, Phil's like, yeah. And he read it through the fact that this was done basically because post Vietnam, this whole program and flying, the Navy had taken a hit. And so they were trying to get young people excited again. Through that prism and the irresponsibility, at least initially for a large part of the film, of Maverick and the tragedy, knowing that this was sort of a souped up on purpose, we want to draw people back in, made this experience, I thought personally, in going back to watch it, all the more intriguing.
Yeah, from Wikipedia, the producers wanted the assistance of the U.S. Navy in the production of the film. The Navy was influential in relation to script approval, which resulted in changes being made. The opening dogfight was moved to international waters as opposed to Cuba. The language was toned down, and a scene that involved the crash on the deck of an aircraft carrier was also scrapped. So they wanted to be, and they were very vague about who the bogeys were, right? Oh, we got an incoming. They weren't. They I don't even remember who the enemy.
Like the MiGs, there was none.
So they didn't even say which country was attacking, right? It was
Zero.
just it's so interesting because they didn't want to ruffle any feathers of potentially other countries, right?
Correct.
Maverick's love interest was also changed from a female enlisted member of the Navy to a civilian contractor due to the U.S. military's prohibition of fraternization between officers and enlisted personnel. So they didn't want any, look at these two over here breaking military rules.
They sort of scrubbed it.
So, yeah, this movie was propaganda. I mean, it truly was. All right, Declan.
Okay, so...
Here, I'll give you the transition.
Thank you. Similar to Judd, I went back and briefly listened to what was said about this film. We reviewed this September of 2020, so it's been almost 2 years. It's been a year and a half since we reviewed this film. And to Judd's point, it was my first time watching it. This was also then my second time. I haven't watched it since we reviewed these films, so this was my second time watching this film. And I was eager to see how I would feel about the second time around. My statement is very simple. I still don't understand this movie. I still don't understand the hype for this movie. I don't get this movie. I think it's a pop culture iconic film. I understand that.
Doesn't sound like you do. Doesn't sound like you do.
No, I understand why people dig it. I personally think this is just like an average at best film.
Oh.
I don't understand the hype, but I want to put a subplot in this statement that I am very eager for the sequel because I think the sequel is going to be better. I think
the sequel is already like 97% on Rotten Tomatoes in the early reviews. Yeah,
certainly is helping me there. And I think I told you guys too in text yesterday, I'm a big Miles Teller fan. I love Miles Teller, and I love even more that he's playing Goose's son because Goose is my favorite character in this film by far. Wow. But I still don't really understand the hype for this movie, which we'll then now parlay into other statements I'm going to make about the film. But I still my first one is
come back and be like, now I get it.
No, I don't understand it.
Okay.
I don't get it.
But are you saying, just to be clear here, you're not saying that the movie's confusing or the plot's confusing in some way, are you? Or are you
not
saying...
necessarily, no. I don't get the people, a lot of people of from Phil's, I think, age 2 and up. Like I was born, I'm 7-8 years younger than Phil. Like I was born in 92. I don't think people much from my age group up understand the hype for Top Gun, where people before it, it's gospel to them. It's literally it's when they think 80s movies and they think Tom Cruise, they think Top Gun. And for me, I don't get that same hype. I can't gravitate there. I can't get there.
Okay, I think I'll give you my first statement because I think it'll kind of part of the reason why I love this movie is because, and here's my statement, this is the full Tom Cruise experience in this movie. And there are several movies where you get the full Tom Cruise experience.
Yep.
Everything from the cheesy one-liners. I just wrote down some of these lines. One of them was when he walks into the bar and he turns to Goose and he goes, "This is what I call a target-rich environment." It's like, okay. I'm sure that might have been an ad lib for all we know. The perma-cocky grin on his face for 2 hours. Getting offended when she, having his ego bruised is always a thing in these Tom Cruise movies where she critiques his flying and he throws a big tantrum. Manic swings in mood are a staple of Tom Cruise movies. Tom Cruise does a lot of his own stunts too. So him in a cockpit, Tom Cruise running around playing volleyball with his shirt off and stuff. Like this is just full on 10 out of 10 Tom Cruise experience in Top Gun. And, he's not my favorite actor, but I love when he is just like Jerry Maguire, right? When you just get 2 hours of full Tom Cruise in your face, it's glorious.
Yeah, and it was perfect Cruise too. Like it was the perfect project, right? Like it's sort of sanitized, so it's not like it's not like a hardcore. It is great gloss. Like this film is great gloss. It's shot well. It's fun. And again, I mean, it clearly, it made perfect sense, Phil, when you when we talked about it the first time back, as Dex said in September of 20, that this was the military saying, we'll help you out a lot here, but you got to help us too. And like Tom Cruise is sort of like the perfect at that age poster child, right? Like cocky, sure of himself, way too cocky. But I think to Declan's point, I think this film 1000% lacks depth, but if I can explain it this way, the 80s lacked all depth.
Yeah. That's a good point.
There was it was cocaine and bad hair, dude. Like there wasn't a lot of thinking going on.
Yeah, did you want like what would have made this movie click more for you? More plot?
Yeah, a little bit more plot. I would want more.
Fewer
Honestly,
planes? Are you just not a planes guy?
no, I'm all about the planes, the fighter jet scenes. Like those are fine. I also want, and I hope maybe the sequel somewhat touched on it. I don't think it will, but I'm curious if it does. I want more backstory. I would prefer a prequel into Maverick. Like he's thrusted into this role. His dad went missing as a fighter pilot, and all of a sudden here he is at Top Gun. It's just like boom, here we are, and it's like, well, I want give me more.
You want like a 6-episode miniseries on Hulu or something called Maverick, right?
Maverick.
What's the lead up?
Nah.
Yeah,
A full arc about his dad.
Give me mindless.
yeah.
Mindless gloss.
All right, back to Judd.
So one of the biggest question marks that we talked about throughout almost the entire previous review that we did was, who's the enemy? Like they're talking about MiGs, but you don't know who it is. You don't know who they're going against. They're just being attacked. But they were very careful to say at one point in the dialogue of the film that, we're not at war right now, but you have to be prepared. So and at the time, that's true. But I figured it out. So I'm watching this, and there's a couple things here. But I kept saying, who's the bad guy here? My statement is this: the enemy, upon my second watching of this yesterday, was the past, and Maverick himself trying to impress his dead dad Duke.
Wow.
That was the enemy. He was fighting the past.
Wow, that's deep.
That is
super deep, dude.
But he was fight. I mean, the whole scene with Tom Skerrrit, right? Your dad did it right. He did. Okay, good. Like, you don't know that much. I mean, to Declan's point, there's no depth here. Like, everything is just bubble gummed. But he was fighting the past.
I need to wrap my head around this. So yeah, I think, because later in the show here, what we're going to do is we're going to rate the movie on entertainment value 1 to 10, and then we're going to rate the movie. We have definitive bad guy ratings as well.
Yep.
There's really no bad guy.
Correct.
They're not fighting a country. Yeah, he's sort of fighting his own demons, or he's fighting He's fighting himself. He's his own enemy. I can't remember, what did we do last time? Did we just not have an enemy or a bad guy?
We didn't have one.
It was the only action movie that we just didn't have a bad guy. Yeah. It's one of the rare action movies where it's not like a conflict against someone or something, right?
It's Maverick against Maverick.
I like it. Okay.
All right, I know this is the full Tom Cruise experience, and it is. Like, it is. It very much is. But my statement is, Tom Cruise is just a creep in this movie, man. And he has massive, pun intended, little man syndrome throughout this entire film.
It's true.
Like, he's in the bar trying to woo someone. He follows her into the bathroom. He throws temper tantrums. He has mood swings. It's all the classic, traits of that little man syndrome, as the PC way I can say that. And he's just a creep the entire film. Like, I don't understand the lure of him in this entire. Again, to my grand scheme,
he plays this character in pretty much every movie to some extent.
So
this
I
is
guess the
more
groundwork
heightened version of it.
Yeah, and it's just, he's so creepy in this movie, man. Like, the entire film, he's weird. He's just a goofy dude, and that is Tom Cruise. I get that. But my statement is, he's a creep and he has little man syndrome, and it's displayed throughout the entire movie.
Well, how about the scene in the elevator? So they're sitting, and by the way, so the scene in the elevator where the guy gets on the elevator, she's got a hat on. The reason why she has a hat on is because they had to reshoot some scenes later on after the production, and she had a different hair color for a different movie she was filming.
Oh,
yeah.
And so they made her put a hat on to hide her hair.
Nice work.
Production note there for you guys. But he leans over to her at one point. I think she says something like, I'm going to be your, when we're here, I am your flight instructor, but we can get dinner over here. and he walks right up close to her, and you think, oh, they're gonna kiss in the elevator. It's gonna be great. And he does the weird Tom Cruise thing where he just walks right up to her face and says, "I'm glad we cleared that up," and then gets out of the elevator. Like he's constantly marking his territory in all these movies, right? Especially this one.
Well, and what we didn't know at the time, but I think we've come to find out about TC is this: like a lot of his acting is very much like he is. I think.
Is.
Like he's a really weird dude. We all know that by now. But Dex, I would say my observation of your problems with this film, and I'm going to sound old here, but it really comes from the fact that at that time, that was all like because it is weird, but it was
80s
normal
culture
then.
is an island unto itself.
I can't describe it, and I sound like an old guy, and I'm not defending it because it was weird, but Phil's right. It's just this weird space and time where everything was just sort of glossy, and I'm not joking. I mean, that was the decade of cocaine. That was the decade. So, like, it makes total sense that a person born in 92 is like, what's the allure here? And Phil gets it, and I totally get it. I don't know why I liked it, but I was there for it, and it was weird.
I kind of get. I didn't live through that era because I was born in 1985. So
Feels like you embrace it more though.
But I got way into 80s culture in like high school. I started buying like 80s hairband CDs and 80s retro shirts and hats and things like that. Like I wore a Whitesnake T-shirt in high school. You know.
Oh, I like that.
Well, I never saw Whitesnake. I'd love to go see Whitesnake at some point, but. Okay, so speaking of 80s and 90s culture, my next statement is I don't understand why people in the 80s and early 90s wore jeans while doing athletic things. So this was, I remember as a kid, even like in the early 90s playing baseball and stuff, and like all the kids were wearing jeans. And I would wear sweatpants because, you know, why are you wearing jeans? The volleyball scene that Declan is singing the Kenny Loggins song to. Playing with the boys, right? They're just
Now
out
we're gonna
there.
get sued, you guys.
They're just diving
It's
around
over.
in jeans, just wearing Levi's on a. It's
The
San
rug
Diego,
burn.
by the way. It is probably 90 degrees. They're wearing jeans.
So I went back and watched that again. Cruz is in jeans. Anthony Edwards, Goose is like in some type of like what looked like some type of wind pants, and some guys. So like Cruz is, I think, the only guy who's like wearing full jeans because he's gonna go on that date, but that's still weird.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. So he goes. They're just going. They're just playing with the boys. Right? They're just playing
gotta go.
volleyball
Goose.
with each other.
One more game, Mav. Gotta go.
And Goose is adamant, like, we need to play another game. And then, so Maverick is sweaty. He's full of sand. He puts his white T-shirt back on, then puts a thick winter bomber jacket on
Yes.
to go ride his motorcycle.
Yes.
And he shows up at Charlie's house late, so he's already late. And he asks her if he can take a shower at her house.
Yeah.
This is their first date. And he just rolls and he's like, do you mind if I take a shower and clean up real quick?
Yes.
What?
In fact, this leads to my next statement because I love that fact. Okay?
Yep.
Here's
Keep it
my
coming.
next statement.
I got one.
The only place that I will ding this film severely, because I get it. It's bubblegum and it's fun. And
It's
look,
great.
it's really well shot. It sucks you in from the very start. The opening is fantastic. But where I will ding this is, and we said this last time, and I watched it closer this time and feel more secure in this statement than ever. The supposed relationship between Maverick and Charlie is so unbelievable, and the chemistry between those two actors is so bad. I'm surprised they didn't replace one of them. It probably would have been her.
They didn't
or at
bring
the
her
very
back
least-
for the
or-
sequel.
No, she's
also
come back.
gone through some issues.
She's gone through some issues, yeah. But I am surprised that, like, at some point in time, they didn't say, this isn't even plausible. And I did read, I don't know, but I did read that in the new one, that they basically have just distanced relationships completely.
Okay.
So
I just got
we'll
an
see.
alert from Fandango, literally just now, that says Top Gun Maverick lands at a theater near you today. Get your tickets now.
You got to get
Look
your
at
ticket.
that.
Propaganda.
But anyway, did the relationship between those two is in no way, shape, or form fun to watch or believable.
Well, you've opened up two different categories of discussion here. There's the chemistry between the two of them, which
Didn't work.
I don't think it's her fault. I think
Well-
Tom. How many movies have you watched Tom Cruise in and thought, yeah, he is making a normal connection with a woman?
Yeah, it's fine.
You know,
Blame
maybe
him. What I'm saying is
Jerry
it stunk.
Maguire with Renee Zellweger.
It stunk. The relationship, the chemistry. Here's what I don't get. Why did you force that when the chemistry is Goose and Maverick?
Well, you need a love interest of some. If you
need
don't have an
something
enemy,
there.
you need a love interest of some kind.
Barely. I don't need
This
as
movie
much
would have
as
been
they-
40 minutes if they didn't have the love interest aspect. The love interest aspect was half the movie.
The sex scene is one of the most
It's painful.
the most uncomfortable sex scenes I have ever
So,
seen.
so before I get to my statement here, because I was watching this too with my girlfriend and her mom, who love this
Oh,
movie, by
man.
the way. Love this movie, especially the volleyball scene for obvious reasons for them on that side.
Just glistening dog tags and
But at one point,
muscles.
after the volleyball scene, when like the actual, the sex scene takes place, the love scene between the two, I said, like, this is legitimately like one of the most uncomfortable ones ever. And her mom disagreed and said, actually, I think it's one of the better ones. I think it actually holds up still. And
Is it,
I was like,
is it the music? The Take My Breath
I was like,
Away?
yeah, I didn't really understand, but then she also points out, and I didn't know this fact, that the actress that plays Charlie
Kelly
is
McGillis.
is a lesbian in real life,
Oh, okay.
and Tom Cruise, let's just
Is Tom Cruise.
say
He's
it's Tom
interesting.
Cruise. It's
He's
Tom
an
Cruise.
interesting-
It's Tom
he's
Cruise.
a thespian in real
So
life.
naturally, I think the disconnect there, like you can just tell, like it was awkward, dude. It the ends don't justify the means between the two. That's about well, you paint the picture. Oh
My
God.
question is this: in
So it
the
makes
actual
sense.
scene, because I did watch it closely, I'm not even sure that's really her. It's definitely him, but like,
Oh,
So they put a stunt
Maybe.
woman. Oh,
I don't,
maybe to
I
form
don't know
better
that
chemistry.
for sure. But what I'm saying is, when I watched it with how she is shot, it doesn't have to be her.
yeah.
It's definitely him. 'Cause
Tom
he
Cruise
is-
does all of his own stunts in the bedroom and in the air.
Oh God.
I
Anyway,
would say
that one to me was. I'll dig it for that.
my biggest observation of that relationship, just the on-screen relationship, is it's supposed to be this extremely taboo, discreet relationship, right? Like, holy crap, this is the top 1% of the U.S. Naval Academy, right? These are the most respected top, and this is all within a military structure. And you have an instructor and a
Right.
student hooking up with each other, right? And they're riding around San Diego on motorcycles in
Yes.
convertibles. Like,
Well,
they're not
at first
in.
they're discreet. At
They're
first
making out in
discreet,
public
and
with each other.
And then it's Goose and Goose's wife and her.
And then they're like
Cruise.
riding in the elevator together
Yes.
and stuff. It's just like the least discreet
By
relationship.
the end, it's like, hey, let's go down to Chuck E. Cheese.
My statement on that is, I wrote this down. Charlie either has bleep standards for love or is lying about not being wooed by previous students, because she says that.
Yeah, dude, she hooks up with so many students.
She
You know
says
she
that
does.
point blank to him, like, I get new students every 8 weeks. You don't think like someone's ever tried to hit on me, is like what she insinuates there. So either two things. Either she has crap standards for love because she falls in love with a guy that followed her into a bathroom and made one comment about his flying, and then she's in love with him, or she has been wooed and has been not taking advantage, I shouldn't say that, had previous relationships with other students. It's one of the two things.
It's amazing.
As
Hey,
Jeff
real-
continues to sing.
Real quick here, a contractor may have shown up at my door, so I am going to go check on while my dog is barking at the door while you guys throw out another statement here.
Judd, without
Stop singing,
singing,
please.
please stop singing and giving me a next
That's
statement.
good. That's good
awful.
stuff. God, you guys, I'm kicking in something. Okay, here's my next statement. I have a lot of statements too. As far as timing goes on this film, because here's the one thing I liked about this film. There were a lot of potential storylines that they don't explore on purpose because it's supposed to be quick and seamless. And really, the star of the film are the planes and the action. Viper, Tom Skerrit, basically telling Maverick to shake off Goose's death, seemingly in the film like the day it happened or
Yeah,
the
I know.
day after it, was both heartless and a genius cinematic move to keep the action going. Because where I will disagree with Phil, and you to a certain point, Dex, is there were other avenues that if they had decided this love thing between Maverick and Charlie does not work, they could have easily explored different things, including Goose's death. Like, Goose's death could have been way more. Meg Ryan is great. She could have been in the film.
Oh, she's phenomenal.
Right, but she wasn't. And by the way, the chemistry between Cruise and her, better than it was between Charlie and her.
Yeah.
But my point is, they were, and I admire this, they were so transparent on how the film was going to be shot, and it wasn't going to go too long, which this film does not, that Goose's death is basically handled with shake it off, kid, it'll happen again.
So I should have just asked. I have two siblings, one who's still active in the military. I should have just asked them this. But it seems like to me that his instructor's advice there, like that seems like military culture though. Like it's heartless. Don't get me wrong, it's heartless. But like, and especially if you're in like the fighter jet type of area of work, literally, it's like, yeah, it happens. Like, people die. Like, and I feel like that's probably, as heartless as that sounds, and as empathy, there should be maybe a little more empathy involved. That's probably military. That's probably a very safe assumption that is a very normal thing in the military. To your point too, and one of my statements too was the better love story here is Meg Ryan and Anthony Edwards. Like, their love is amazing. They have the little boy who now, that's Miles Teller in the next film and stuff. Right. But clearly, there's also like their relationship. It's adorable. They're singing songs together.
Lose me forever.
Me forever. Yeah, and apparently that is
corny.
Just a genius line from my beautiful girlfriend's mother that says like that is one of the better lines ever. I was like, that is so.
Dawn
adorable.
loves that line.
Sorry, I missed the last 5 minutes because I have a contractor looking to fix the nail that I pounded into a sewage pipe last week.
Quit trying to hang things.
But can I say that Meg Ryan, that's her name, right? Yeah, Meg Ryan.
Meg Ryan, yeah.
Yeah, she's in the movie.
The line that you're talking about, that's my least favorite part of the movie. Like, her overacting, and like, my dog agrees too here, by the way, too.
Oh, the dog's fine.
Dog's good.
There's a stranger danger in your house right now.
Just chaos over here right now.
Dude, Dawn loves that line. That line. See, this is the thing. This goes back to the generational thing. At that time, that line was perceived. People love that line. Take me to bed or lose me forever. And yes, now totally corny. But I would say if we were to rank the relationships, like the actual relationships in this film, I really think Goose and Maverick.
Well, yeah, they're the number one.
And that's played off pretty well, though. Like, it's plausible.
Yep.
It's believable. That's one. I think you're right. I think, who's a good? If you're watching us right
Speaking
now,
of good relationships,
Maya Mackey
wants to get after that contract.
Stay on that leash. Stay on that leash. Don't go off the leash. I think the second one, Dex, you're exactly right. I think it's Meg and Goose.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I think the third one, and I'm not joking, I think it might be Viper, Tom Skerrit, and Maverick. Because the Skerrit-Maverick relationship there, and the fact that Skerrit's character has the keys to unlock to the mystery of Mav's dead dad Duke is important. So, like, I think you can hit on like 3 or 4 relationships in this film that are way superior to Charlie and Maverick. Who's a good girl?
Who's a good girl?
Maverick's a good, he's a good lieutenant, but Maya Mackey's a better girl.
All right, I got a statement for you guys here. I don't think you've touched on this. Jerry Bruckheimer, as a producer of movies, is better at his job than most people in entertainment history. So this is the run that Jerry Bruckheimer had throughout the 80s and the 90s that led to a $900 million net worth. Okay?
Wow.
Flashdance, Beverly Hills Cop 1 and 2, Top Gun.
Should have stopped. Yep.
Days of Thunder, Bad Boys and Bad Boys 2, Crimson Tide, The Rock, Con Air, Armageddon, Coyote Ugly, Gone in 60 Seconds, Remember the Titans, Black Hawk Down, Pearl Harbor, all of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and all of the CSI TV shows.
Yes, TV.
His net worth is $900 million. Jerry Bruckheimer, old Jer.
Dude, you're right. You're
just
exactly right.
Slinging the hits.
Slinging takes.
And
slinging
he's great
hits.
at it.
I love it. Yeah.
But the formula to me is crystal clear, and it works. And he was smart enough to stick with it, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah, I
action
mean, this guy.
formula works.
So how does that work? So, I mean, does he get paid? He must, to get that sort of net worth, he must have a chunk of these projects,
Yes.
right? So apparently he gets, every time CSI episodes from 15, 20 years ago air in syndication, he gets a chunk of change from that somehow.
And much like Spielberg, my guess, he at some point in time began to get equity in companies, right? Like I'm sure he's got a
Probably.
piece of a studio like Spielberg does,
Yeah.
which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, could be. All right. Any more statements to clear out here before we get to the
I've got one more.
ranking?
Dex.
Yeah, well, fire away.
I love Goose. Just Goose is the best. I try. I think, and I looked back, and I think both you said you were the Goose of this movie. I myself was the Goose of this
Just
film.
a good wingman.
Just a good wingman, man. Just looking out for your buddy. You know, your error is what causes my own death, but that's okay. You know, I was there as a good
there was
friend.
no error. No error there. No error. No blame. He's cleared. He's completely cleared. The jet stream thing
Oh,
killed the engine. No, the very thing is, at the end of the day, it's not Mav's fault that the plane crashed. Absolved completely. My last statement is this. I said it last time. Declan was, I think, very upset by it. Phil, mildly upset, but I will bring it back because yesterday I went into the film with the intention of seeing how I felt about it. Goose's death still doesn't bother me one bit. Doesn't move me.
What?
that's so
Here's why.
screwed up.
Here's why. Because Goose is the ultimate in collateral damage. He is his wingman.
This is a very sociopathic
He is in the
take by
back
you.
seat.
Yeah, it is.
He is in the back seat. Goose was asking for death, and he got death.
What do you mean he was asking for death?
He followed along everything Mav did, and Mav was, and look, in this case, Mav was not at fault, but Mav did a lot of dangerous things.
So the jet
That-
streams are not to blame.
that
You're
led-
saying Goose is to blame.
No, I am saying that if you follow a guy like Mav through life, which is what Goose did, he was going to be with Mav because he loved him all the time.
I can
Sometimes
get
he
with you
died.
on that one. What I would say
It
is
doesn't upset me.
my issue with the death. It was kind of bang bang, right? Just it happened very quickly.
Yeah,
He lands in the water and he's just dead. I feel like they should have played it out a little bit longer. There should have been a little bit more.
Talked about. Well, how about the scene where Tom Skerrett walks up to Mav and is like, "I had guys die. You'll have more guys die. Pick it up, kid. Get back in the air."
Yeah, it's the lessons you got to learn flying dangerously.
So
Yeah, they kind of sped through some of that stuff.
you know what? As far as pace of film goes, I just told Dex that I had no problem with that.
I do.
not
I
upset
actually
by it.
I do have one more statement. The soundtrack of this movie is
Oh,
incredible.
it is all-
and
it's all
still
time.
holds up
Yeah.
to this day.
Yeah.
I mean, Kenny Loggins, Cheap Trick, Miami Sound Machine, and Gloria Estefan playing in the club. Loverboy, Otis Redding. I mean, it's
Old
just
school.
yeah, it's 60s all the way through the mid 80s. Just so many great things in the soundtrack. The album reached, the soundtrack did, #1 in the U.S. charts for 5 non-consecutive weeks in the summer of 1986.
Can you imagine that?
Best-selling soundtrack of 1986 and one of the best-selling soundtracks of all time.
Can you imagine
Wow.
that? Acid wash jeans driving around town, top of the convertible down with that soundtrack playing
Yeah.
Boys.
in the 80s.
With the buzz. So great. Amazing. All right.
Anyway.
Any final statements off Top Gun before we get to the definitive bad guy rankings and
I'm just
entertainment?
excited
value?
for Top Gun Maverick now.
So, all right. And by the way, the definitive rankings here presented by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They've been around helping minimize risk for businesses. Now, if you have, $30 million planes as part of your business, I don't know what kind of experience they have in helping you. You could put a phone call in or go to the website. They're all about risk management and maximizing your business at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. So the definitive bad guy rankings apply to pretty much every action movie except this one. And so I know that you said, the bad guy is the past or whatever.
Right, but that's
I don't know what we do. I last time we did this movie a couple years ago, we just didn't include a bad guy ranking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is there any? Can you guys think of a bad guy that we can put in here? It's the only action movie that doesn't have a bad guy.
Are Miggs a bad guy? Like, I can't. Like the MiGs are the bad
How about
guy.
this? What if we said this? Because I think we have to have a bad guy. So they call enemy. You'll notice toward the end, Viper was explaining like the sky was filled with bogeys like fireflies, right? So they call enemy planes bogeys in this movie. So what if we just said like the bogeys? And by the way, the criteria for the 1 through 10 rating is how iconic is the bad guy, how ruthless is the bad guy, and how charismatic is the bad guy. Yeah. So I think in this case, we would say, not to sway voting here, the bogeys are the bad guy. They're kind of just in the background. They're not iconic. They're not ruthless.
That's a 1.
They're not charismatic.
It's a 1 if it's anything.
Yeah.
I think that's what we have to do, don't we?
I'm fine with that.
So, all right. So what, you're giving it a 1 out of 10?
Yeah. I mean,
The bogeys?
It's nothing. Yes.
Dex?
A 1.
Yeah, it's a 1.
It's a
Easily
1. Because it's just not part, it's no knock on the movie. It just, wasn't part of the movie. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So now we're looking for entertainment value of this movie. 1 being you fell asleep, it was so terrible. 10 being one of the best movies that you could possibly see. Mm-hmm. We'll start with Judd.
I am going to, because it executes so many things so very well, but the relationship that they tried sucks. I'm going to give it a 9 instead of a 10. It's a 9.
You might remember that I said on Judd's next Action Movie Rewind, he would review a film of a grade of 7 or higher. So that is a point for Declan. That is a point for Declan.
Very nice.
Nice job, Dex. You were waiting on that one for weeks and weeks.
For
and weeks.
months. I think I made it in January.
That film, I ain't going to give that film a 6, so it's getting a 9 from me.
Oh, well, horrible transition because I give it a 6 out of 10.
God.
You dropped it.
I gave it a 7 on the initial
You were 7
watch.
last time.
And actually, my biggest what I said that I lacked of it, because I said it was a good fine movie the first review, but I said the lack of the true bad guy hurt it, and that's when I was still trying to get ingrained in the Action Movie Rewind philosophy. So I think that probably skewed it a little bit. The lack of a bad guy doesn't hurt the rating in this film for me. It's a 6 for me. I to the points I made on the offset, I can't, because I wasn't immersed into that culture. I don't understand the lore of it. So for me, it's just a 6.
Guys, I'm giving this a 10, man.
He's going back to the well.
Did I give it a 10?
Yep.
It's a 10.
And you were apoplectic at Dex last time. You ripped him for like 5 minutes straight.
Yeah,
you wouldn't stop.
You were pissed
up and
at
down.
me.
Like
Yeah.
your
You were
exact
legitimately
words
upset
were,
at me.
"What are you doing?" Which is the Mackey way of saying
Yeah.
you're a dumb bleeder.
You're a dumbass. Listen, I have come to respect
What are you doing?
Declan's opinion more over the last 2 years. Not that I didn't respect Declan 2 years ago, but I'm not going to rip on Declan too bad. You people like what they like.
All right.
But for me, this movie's so good. I watched it yesterday afternoon for homework purposes, and then it was on Paramount at night, and I watched it again going to bed. I watched the last hour last night.
So you're not bothered at all by the fact that the McGillis cruise thing just doesn't work?
I think it works better than you think it does. I don't know what I don't know. Like you're expecting some sort of like Romeo and Juliet.
No,
chemistry.
I want chemistry. I want any chemistry. I want as much chemistry between them as I got between Mav and Goose.
I enjoy the relationship for what it is. I think it's a perfect combination of love story, action movie, soundtrack is incredible.
Yeah, the
I
I
downloaded the soundtrack, or I followed the soundtrack, whatever you want to call it, on Spotify the day after we reviewed this 2 years ago. I still listen to it in rotation. Like
Oh my God.
a couple times a month. I'll just all of a sudden, you'll just you'll hear the rolling credits song come popping in.
You love the 80s, dude.
It's great. So it's a 10. That means it's a composite score of 8.3.
Yeah, you dropped it, Dex.
So there we go. I think it was like an 8.7 or something. Or
Now,
8.5 last time.
onward and upward to what I expect to be a 10.
So
Yeah, I'm excited for
we'll
this
do
next one.
Top Gun Maverick. We all got time to watch it this week in a theater somewhere and come back for next Friday.
First time. First time.
Judd, you want to watch it with me?
Go in. No. First time that we will go to a theater to actually come out.
Yeah.
How am I going to take notes?
This will be my first time in a theater since the pandemic started too.
Me too.
Do we have to wear masks the whole time or no? Are we good on that?
Depends on the theater. I don't know. I think you're mostly
okay
fine.
Here. But how do I take my notes? Like I ordinarily am
On your
jotting down
well,
notes.
you could on your phone you could do it.
Yeah, just don't be that guy, that has the brightness on as you're like, pecking away.
No, I have a notepad. I take notes on my notepad.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right,
Anyway.
there it is. Action
All right,
Movie
good stuff,
Rewind is back. It's back in the mix all summer long. And we got a full list of just some of the movies that we're going to hammer out here. So if you have suggestions, hit us up. Send us a list on Twitter. And please stop singing Judd. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us, Mackey and Judd.